Welcome to the Food Envy podcast, where we're exploring the visual side of food. Today I'm here in Oxford to meet with Ben Wood, the head chef of Wilding in Oxford. Ben, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Pleasure.
It's really exciting to come in and talk to you about your food and your, I guess, relatively new venture for you, isn't it, here in Oxford. So maybe we could just start with, you could give me a rough outline of sort of your background and then possibly an idea of your plating style, effectively, like how you would describe how you plate effectively.
Yeah, no worries. So I've been a chef since I started sort of when I was about 16. Started as a pot wash, got into kitchens and just really loved the buzz of it. And then worked in some sort of semi-alright places. And then sort of as my career's progressed, I've sort of gone and pushed myself to go and work in better places. So I did a little stint in a couple of restaurants in Glasgow. One called the Gannet, really amazing restaurant using really like beautiful Scottish produce, very natural, but quite fine dining, but meticulously plated.
Okay. So very precise.
Yeah, amazing.
You had what's the word they use for it? It's the instructions almost.
But very organic as well, and just using the best of Scottish produce. If prior to that, I did a little stint on Game of Thrones for the catering in season 5.
Yeah.
So I lived in Ireland for about 3 months doing that in Belfast. That was a good gig. I was about 21 then, so it was. Yeah, and then. About 2018, I moved to London, worked in a few places, did a couple of weeks staging at Ellison Street by Phil Howard, and then I ended up as junior sous chef at Barrafina Dean Street, Michelin star restaurant. Did that for a couple of years, or just a year and a half. COVID hit. Then I moved to Fenchurch in the Sky Garden, fine dining restaurant. Was the senior sous chef there, basically running the kitchen on day to day. So I left Fenchurch and went back to. They asked me to go and be head chef of Barrafina, so Angel, the current culinary director, he's not there anymore, but asked if I'd come back and run Barrafina Dean Street, which I did. So I did that from 2022 to 23. Did loads of cool stuff. Retained their Michelin star in March 2023, which was a big thing for me. Just to confirm that, it's always nice to receive those sorts of things, and obviously it is. Retaining a star is as hard as gaining one, because you have that expectation that they expect you it to be the same consistently always, and really proud of that to have done that. And plating style, very quite minimalist, not too much on the plate. I like it to look like ingredients have just sort of fallen. I'm not really one for swipes and dots and things like that. I'm more like it's just sort of fallen out of the sky, but it looks good, and that's very sort of Simon Rogan style as well. That's those sort of areas of plating. But I also, when I plate to make sure that the dish eats well. So we'll use, if we're doing a puree or something, it'll be done on the whole bottom of the plate. So as you eat the whole dish, you get the puree, because otherwise, I think plating can help the way, not only visually but also the way a dish eats as well. So I think that's very important.
The functionality of it.
Exactly, yeah.
I completely agree. It's great to go up. That level of precision, I think, can sometimes be a bit too intimidating for people. Like, where do you start? And I think quality plating is you kind of infer just by where things are, how it's composed, and that you need to eat everything together or you eat them individually. There is a degree of thought to that as well. So would you say that you're kind of you freestyle it, do you? Or do you have a mental picture just based on your experience, or is it something that you will then, because again, having done this podcast, speaking to a number of chefs, like how you plate it this week might be slightly different to how you plate it, at the end of the time that it's on your menu, because I think you're pretty seasonal and you're
very much so. I think as I've always got a basic idea. I quite like things to be a little bit offset. Yep. Not too bothered. I don't really like symmetry. I think symmetry ruins dishes.
Interesting. Okay.
We all know, or it's quite common knowledge, that an odd number is more pleasing to the eye.
Yep.
And I think just sort of building layers as well in dishes makes things, look a lot better. But I think things will change as we go on, and there'll be times where I'm like, oh, I don't really like that. But I think I have a decent idea of how it's going to look when I come to plate it.
So you're definitely not a drawer then? You don't sketch?
I used to be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I loved art as a kid and at school. I don't really. I do sometimes, but I don't. I tend to end up just sort of like, I like to be hands on. But I do enjoy sketching, but I don't really do it to create dishes. To be, if I'm being totally honest, it doesn't work for me.
It's funny because the last video I did on the channel, which wasn't a podcast, was all about the importance of sketching when it comes to designing dishes and things like that. Because, again, having chatted to a bunch of chefs on this, it's almost like the fear of drawing not being very good is what stops people from doing it. Because I always so when I do photography, I generally have a plan in my head. I might do a light diagram or something like that just to give me a jumping off point. Mm-hmm. And it's just interesting to see who does and who doesn't in the sort of the culinary world. And there's definitely two camps.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it's, it's not, I'm not saying that you shouldn't draw. I think it's great. And I think maybe I'm a bit of, when I was doing art, I was quite a perfectionist. So I think I would have to sketch it to make it look like an actual plate of food, like really accurate. So I probably think that's why I don't bother doing it.
Yeah.
But when I design a dish, I go through the processes of, I sort of think of like the main element, and then I start working in the other bits. So I do it more in a sense of writing it down rather than as opposed to drawing it, but it's still the same concept of so you've probably got usually protein, and then maybe if you're going to put a sauce or sort of your main garnish with it, and then I'll start to add in the little bits of if I'm going to add texture through, adding I don't know, crispy shallots or something like that on top of it, but that's how I do it. And then I sort of have a rough idea of how I know.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here quickly as I don't want to disturb the flow of the video too much. I hope you're learning some great tips from Ben, but if you're still struggling to get started in your own plate designs, then can I suggest you download my Plate Like a Pro checklist. It's helped literally hundreds of chefs and home cooks alike to consider the visual aspects of a dish, elevating their plating from the simply delicious to the truly beautiful. And if you'd like even more help, then why not join our private Facebook group, where you'll find a like-minded, supportive and friendly community of platists, where we're learning, growing and developing our visual knowledge and styles together. You can find details of both in the description below.
And how about colour then? How do you get colour involved in that? Is that something that's fairly intrinsic, or is that just based on the ingredients that you have?
I would never fake colour anything, no. But what I do is I love herb oils because I think and I like splitting sauces with herb oils. So at the moment we've got a dish on of roasted cod with a warm tartar sauce and smoked mussels that are going through it, and we split it with a little bit of we make a green herb oil. So any herbs that are sort of coming to the end of their life that we can't use actually in the kitchen, we just blend them up, get them really boiling hot until the chlorophyll spritz out, and then you're left with this super green oil, and we just use that to sort of finish dishes. And also wild garlic's coming in as well, so we'll use that. I think colour is important, but only if it's if it's natural colour and if it's there. Obviously, when we're cooking things, we'll blanch stuff and we'll put stuff onto ice if we're making anything green to make sure that we're maximising colour. But I wouldn't ever use anything to make things. I'm making pasta at the moment, but we use amazing eggs from around in the Cotswolds called cackle beans, and their yolks are really orange, so that's how we get that beautiful colour of pasta. We don't put I know some people put saffron in pasta. Absolutely got no problem with it, but it's just not for me because it's not really if you just got great yolks and great yolks, that'll give you that sort of colour through the dish.
Yeah, no, I certainly wasn't trying to get to the point of just putting colour in for colour's sake, but the whole colour theory of the colour wheel, and you've got monochromatic colour, you've got analogous colour, you've got complementary colour, all of which can be used in the toolkit of a chef, I would imagine. Like you're saying, the green sauce, which contrasts against the red of a chicory or something along those lines. Just wondering if that ever comes into your thought process, not just shoehorning in a colour for the sake of it.
No. So I think, I always try and use, if we're doing a salad or something like that, we'll always use some really a variety of nice leaves to sort of to balance it out. 100%. Yeah, I think that part's important.
Yeah.
Offsetting red with purple or red with green, maybe some chili or, oranges and things like that. Like at the moment we've got a black cuttlefish risotto on.
Yeah.
So we put squid ink through it. We braise the cuttlefish down in squid ink. We cook the rice in squid ink, and then we use a fish stock that we add in squid ink too. So it's jet black, it's very black. But then obviously we offset that by we've got some blood orange that we put in the centre, just a lovely bit of zest we finish it with, and some beautifully cut segments.
Yeah.
And I've done that because I wanted to put blood orange through it because it's seasonal at the moment and it goes great with fish, but also for the fact that it does bring some colour. So we're using that. But obviously I wouldn't ever put anything on a dish just to bring colour. But when we're doing that, that makes the two things make sense and the two things gel. So you've got flavour and it adds a lovely bit of colour to it.
Yeah, I really I had a dish not that long ago from the chef down in Brighton, something that sounds very similar to what you're talking about with the risotto, and there was a black squid cracker somehow he made on top, but served it all on a black dish as well. So everything was black.
Okay.
And I just love that. I've got a real thing for monochromatic color schemes and things like that. So how it's done, I've got no idea. I just love that. You know, you've got one color and you use different tones and hues, and black is just such a brave choice, I think, because just black is an absence of color, isn't it? You know, it's just black is not something that I would think should be appetizing, but I really like it when someone's gone to that level.
Yeah.
And it just shock is too strong a word, but it's just quite a wow. That's
100%.
Quite a stunning thing to do. It's a brave thing to do.
Yeah, and we also make when we have a lot of onions. If we put onions with something, we've got a lot of the skins and the petals, like the outer skin of the onion. We'll burn them, and then we turn it into a powder, and then we'll finish like all our sourdough bread that we make in house comes with like a roasted onion and Marmite butter, and we just dust some of the leek ash or the onion ash or whatever we've sort of got over the top. But again, it's no wastage. You know, that's what we're into. But yeah, adding that colour with that. We used to do a dish in the Gannet in Glasgow, Peter did, which was this amazing piece of squid that we used to cure and then barbecue and then blowtorch as well with a chicken wing. But he used to make a really nice roasted onion puree. But we used to finish it with loads of squid ink, and then we'd flick it across the plate.
Oh wow!
Using the back end of a spatula, and it looked great. Like it was a lovely technique, and it looked really cool. And people make I've seen a few times. I've made squid ink burger buns once.
Squid ink.
So they just went completely black, like a long time ago. And I've seen people make like macaroons with charcoal in them to make them black. Black's cool. I think black works in some aspects. Yeah, but it has to be relatively natural. Yeah, again.
Yeah, no, I take on board what you're saying there. So looking back at your sort of work history and stuff, which of those restaurants sort of had the biggest impact on how you do things here, plating wise?
I think because my cooking is most of the restaurants I've worked in have been relatively quite simple. I would probably say the Gannet in Glasgow, like the way we plated was very beautiful, but very natural at the same time. Yeah, you know, it'd be a lot of usually piece of meat on one side of the plate, garnished down the other, brought into the center very nicely, and that's how it would look. And also for that guy, for taste as well, I learned so much about how things should taste and acidity and stuff. But you know, everything that we plated was beautiful. You know, building height, creating that nice element of the fact that you don't want everything to be flat. You need a little bit flat and then it to rise and fall. You don't want everything to be exactly the same height. Not everything should be the same shape, the same size. So I think that would be the but I think as I've got older, I've found my own sort of style as well of how my food looks.
Well, that's very interesting. So I put out on the community tab on YouTube for people to ask questions, and I was going to leave it to the end, but seeing as you've literally just come up with that, one of the questions was, how did you develop your own style? Have you been like you're like a magpie and just picking bits up? Have you tried to really create stuff that is signature to you? I mean, are you just an evolution of the places that you've worked and, you know, then looking at...
No, I don't think I'm an evolution of the places I've worked. I think I've found my own style, but I think it just happens relatively organically. Like, I love cooking. This is all I absolutely adore it. It's my favorite thing. You know, even on a bad day, it can be, we had some rubbish days here. Sometimes, you know, it happens, it's natural, but we always get through it and we always push. And, you know, when people say, you know, come and say, because we've got an open kitchen and people, you know, come and say, oh, it was really amazing. And I see some of the lovely comments that, you know, people leave on the feedback on, you know, our booking platform. And obviously we've got the little chef's counter with 4 seats. You know, I've had a couple of people sat there this weekend and we get chatting. And I think food is it's so easy to strike conversation. Yeah. But I think for finding my own style and plating, I think plating, probably you take a little bit more inspiration from what other people are doing. And obviously I read a lot. I go on, you know, everything's on YouTube these days, Instagram. Yeah. I would never copy, but obviously you naturally take, it's like anything in life. If you have some sort of mentor, you'll always take a little bit of inspiration. But I think there's a lot of chefs out there, and, you know, this is no disrespect to them, but they work somewhere and then they go and open, or they go and start cooking, and they're basically cooking that person's food, that sort of style, that plating. Whereas I think it's important that I've worked in some really great restaurants, but lots of quite varied, you know, from fine dining to really relaxed. And I think that's brought it all into full circle and sort of given me the confidence to make simple food, but still to look, you know, really, really nice.
I mean, that's something I've learned from doing this podcast, is that simple is a sign of confidence. you know, it's not just being lazy. It's an intentional choice.
Yeah.
It's an intentional choice, and especially when you mix it with the seasonality, with the Britishness, with the, you know, the whole ethos of, I guess, New Nordic is a good way to sort of talk about it broadly.
Yeah.
But I think that it takes an awful lot of confidence to say when is enough on a plate, and you're not constantly just adding, and you can say,
no,
I'm happy. This is good. I know this is good.
Yeah, we know from history that doesn't work, and it's not interesting. People don't want 15 items on a plate anymore. I think when you get to a certain point, you know, like if you're creating a dish and you've got an ingredient, it's okay to use the same ingredient in lots of different techniques. So maybe like a puree, and then, you know, in other ways to accompany. But when you're putting too many flavors on a plate, it just doesn't work because you lose what the main focus of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, your mouth doesn't know what to do either, does it?
No,
really?
100%. So at the moment we've got a hispy cabbage dish on, which is we brine it for about 12 hours in salt solution, and then we vac pack it and steam it, and then we've got a green Thai curry sauce. But I make the sauce with cabbage, so we finish it with loads of cabbage. So we're using the same ingredient to that we're using throughout the dish. So we've got and then we barbecue half the cabbage, and then we just sit it on the plate with the green Thai sauce underneath. And then we've got some texture of using some pickled shiitake mushrooms and some wild rice huffed and some crispy shallots. But it's all, and it sits that's actually one of my plates that actually sits very central. Yep. And I'm very tough on the guys to make sure that they make the way it has to look. Is because it's so simple, it has to be bang on.
It's got to be precise.
Yeah, 100%.
Can't look lazy, can it?
No, because there's some things that I think you can make the sort of, you know, where you just putting on a plate, but that one needs to be, because it's basically just a barbecued cabbage. Yeah. It's very tasty, but it needs to sit absolutely central to the plate. Sauce underneath needs to have like an inch round the side so you can see it, but it's not too much, and it has to be perfectly smoothed out to be really, really spherical, and then cabbage sit on the top. So
yeah, I love that. So specifically with that dish, then how do you start coming up with the idea, not necessarily of the recipe, but how that is going to look? Because again, clearly you put a lot of thought into how that's going to look. And I'm just interested, was it driven by how you just saw the how you saw the recipe coming together, or did you know, no, it just has to be this way?
So the plating actually started, the sauce on the bottom that started has always been the same, but we actually used to cut it in half at one point and sort of sit it ajar. And then I kind of was like, I don't know why I'm doing it, because it doesn't really make sense, because it's a cabbage. Yep. So why don't I just leave it in its entire form? So I did.
And then I guess the rest of it comes off the back of that. Once you've made that decision, you then need to compose it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So it has to sit in the center, and then we've got all the nice stuff on top that's adding texture and then acidity through the mushrooms. But again, that's also building height. And it's actually vegan, that dish, and it's gluten free. Yep. So and it's, when people eat it, I think I've had big blokes that are like, they've ordered like the 60-day age rib of beef and pork chop, and then they go, that cabbage was probably the best thing we had. So I'm like, good, because I think that's what we're also trying to do here. I'm really trying to champion vegetables, because vegetables are great. Yeah. And you can make them amazing, but you just have to look after them.
Well, it's funny, I went to do a video with a guy up in Wellingborough, and his entire thing is cooking over open fire, wood burner, all that kind of stuff. And he did me this scallop dish, cooking the scallop on the flame and stuff with some samphire, and I think it was some kale. And I love scallops, so I was so excited about it. I couldn't get over how good the samphire, which was slightly burnt, and the kale that was slightly burned, charred.
No.
Whatever the right word is, but it was so good and so different to how. And the fact that was almost the best thing, and the scallop was still beautiful, but it was that I remember.
Yeah, I think
vegetables done well, it's a skill.
Yeah, they're great. I just think, and let's be honest, most stuff barbecued is proper good. Like the carrots that we've got on at the moment are basically, I had them on Christmas Day.
Oh, really?
They were my Christmas Day lunch, and we did that. I've got barbecue like in a little shelter at home. So we on Christmas Day I barbecued. We barbecued. Also, because two of my induction hobs are broken at home, so I don't really have that much room. So we were like, we'll light the barbie up. But yeah, it's great. Vegetables, I think a lot. But again, that's it. That carrot dish is interesting. So it's carrots that we cook in sort of like a soy sauce, sherry vinegar, and brown sugar reduction, and then we vac pack them and steam them in that. I don't use sous videing a lot, but I do like it for keeping, because I think it's great because it basically seals moisture, and it keeps everything in together. And then we do it, and then obviously you've got the carrots that we finish on the over the coals, so they get quite licked and a bit burnt. And then we've got a yogurt that we hang, so it goes really thick. We spice it, but again on the bottom of the plate we put the yogurt, and then the orange of the carrot with the blackness that's been bit charred, and then the whiteness of the yogurt really works.
So it sounds quite a contrasty dish.
Yeah, and then we have some hazelnut, like a dukkha that goes over the top. So they're just sort of sesame seeds and spices cooked off. And then hazelnuts, toast it all off, and then sort of break it down. But yeah, that's a nice dish.
Yeah. And so when your dishes, you're coming up with these things, are you somebody that kind of involves other people in how this works, or are you kind of, this is my idea and we can evolve it over time, or do you bring in ideas? Do you encourage people to come to you with ideas? No,
100%. If people want to, I encourage it. If people want to put dishes on, I think it's more important that people come to me with flavors rather than sort of saying I've got this whole complete dish in my head, because that tends to, a lot of people, it doesn't really work. Whereas like if someone comes to me and says, oh, why don't we do like this and this, I'll be like, okay, cool, right, let's figure that out in a different way and let's see what we can do. A lot of these, like the guys in the kitchen, are relatively young though, so I think they obviously, sometimes people can be a bit scared to be like, but I used to be that as a chef. Like I was always badgering my head chefs to be like, can we do this, what about this, what about this, and half of it wasn't that great, but but even if you got 10%,
showing passion though, isn't it? Really, it's showing
100%.
Want to have your own creations, because let's face it, we are different creative industry, but that's why I do what I do. It's to be creative, and I'm sure most chefs must be like that as well, I would think.
Definitely. I think you have to be creative, otherwise, but thinking in what we're trying to do here is I'm trying to do things that just tasty food. It can be anything, but it has to be relatively English ingredients and very seasonal. So at the moment we've got one of our sort of little snacks is a Jerusalem artichoke bhaji. So I love an onion bhaji. Great. Made completely with Jerusalem artichokes.
Wow.
But again, no waste. So we grate them. We peel them. And then we wash all the skins so they're not gritty. And then we deep fry them. And then we make a bhaji mix with the artichokes. And we put black onion seeds through it, mix it. And then we serve it with a beetroot chutney, which is basically a mango chutney recipe, but it's made with beetroot, because obviously we're not great at growing mangoes in UK. I haven't seen many mango trees in Oxford. So and again, so fun food like that, doing that, and again, that's a great dish visually, because it's obviously you've got sort of the artichoke goes a really nice, lovely brown color, like roasted brown color when we deep fry the bhaji, and then we've got this really great beetroot chutney so it's very contrasting.
Because I was going to say, because being a food photographer for the past 10 years, doing sort of curry dishes and things like that is a very hard thing to make tastes amazing. Clearly tastes amazing, but styling those sorts of things can be quite hard. It can be a struggle. So you've automatically got some colour in there, and then you've got the texture of the bhaji and stuff. But that's a good looking dish.
Yeah, but we do love a curry.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. We absolutely do. Again, one of the questions I got asked to ask is about the physical plate itself as well. So you talked about you don't like things you like things off center.
Yeah, relatively.
Does that kind of dictate what kind of plate you can use? Is there a functional side to that? Because one of the chefs I did a dish with, he intentionally put something asymmetrically, because when he puts the sauce down, it immediately pulls in the middle. So you kind of have to do it that way.
Yeah, for plates, I have like some very sort of simple off-white sort of speckled plates. Mm-hmm. I don't particularly like any plates that aren't circular.
Yep.
We have got some really nice oval, beautiful from Portugal, really beautiful porcelain ones that are just white and polished, and they're really lovely. And we use those for fish, because obviously they suit the shape of a fish. Yeah. Or when we're doing a whole fish, which we tend to do quite a few of.
Lovely.
But I have a very wide range of sizes of plates, but they're all the same.
So the same sort of look, it's just different different scale.
It's exactly the same range. They're just bought in every single size, going from like, I don't know, I think it's 10 centimeters up to 24, 26 centimeters.
Okay. And that was intentional. You just didn't want to have the extra complexity of the factor of dealing with a plate that then changes your
I've worked with places where the plates are, amazing, and they cost, £100 each, and they're very, but I think a lot of the time I prefer white and sort of cream, because I think it tends to work with everything color wise, because I just can't stand black plates. I really don't like black plates. It just doesn't work for me. In a sense of, I just like everything to be relatively the same. And it's almost like, I don't think you find many artists who draw on black paper or like coloured paper. Most artists paint or sketch on white or sort of that lovely sort of beigey cream colour. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. There's actually a reason why, because it's more forgiving for all other colour palettes, isn't it? But I think there is a place for when it's intentional, and you are making, like I said, that completely black dish, and you're doing that monochromatic something, whatever it might be. I think there is a place. I think there's more a place for texture than there is for colour, if you see what I mean, on a plate. Having little indentations or something just to give it a bit more interest than just a plain white plate. Yeah, ours are slightly speckled, so they almost look like they're. They look like they are slightly speckled, but very dull. But it's brilliant, because obviously I've discussed like getting into photography, and I've started to do a lot of my own photography here for like taking photos, and I love how much the plate really looks cool, because especially when you've got a bit of a grainy image on the camera, it picks up the sort of speckles on the plate, and it looks really good. I think it's one of those things. Once you start to notice it, it makes a huge difference. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, I'm not going to get too geeky about photography and food photography, but things like what you put the plate on. So, for example, you've got a brilliant wooden floor here. That just then elevates the dish as well. It just adds more texture, more interest to an image, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So those sort of things. And the plate is just a very good extension of that. So we've got, I've figured out where all my food photography, I do it in the garden, because the light's always really good. And also we have these really sort of interesting, I think they're metal tables, but they're sort of like distressed. Yeah. So they look a bit like, almost like, a bit slaty, but really grey slate. And it's great how you can actually, in different lights, they sort of change. So when you're photographing dishes, and obviously when you do a bit of editing afterwards, you can pick it up and you can make it really dark or really light, and it sort of sings against it. And I try to change that whenever so if I've got something really colourful, I usually turn up and make the table seem a bit darker. Whereas if we've got something that's a bit duller on the plate, I'll turn the lighting down and make the background quite white, almost like, and it just that really sort of like sepia sort of grey. I think it looks quite cool. It makes a massive difference when you factor that in. It's interesting the fact that you've got all the same plate in different sizes. So when you're plating, how does scale of what you're doing come into? Because clearly, again, you can have a big plate with something small on it to sort of direct the eye and to give it importance and things like that. Yeah. If it's a high value item or what have you, is that something that you think about in terms of, will you always put something that's proportional onto a plate, so a big plate will have something large on it, or will you mix and match with small bits on big plates and maybe not big bits on small plates? But yeah, no, I'll always make sure that I think that the plate you should have a good gap around whatever you're plating. I would never want to see anything just jammed onto a plate. I don't think it makes sense. I think it's better to have a slightly bigger place to work on. Don't get me wrong, with like a few things like we've got these little we make like this amazing aged cheese custard, and we make donuts. So they're savoury donuts, and then we roll them in paprika sugar. Yeah, they're pretty proper good. We go through so many, but we just sit those on a small plate because they're just like that. And it's not really a plated dish. It's literally a snack on a plate. It is what it is. But when we get up to the bigger things and more of the sort of, we 100%, I would never put anything that's too big onto a small plate. I always want to leave like a nice area for, so it does sort of sing in the middle or offset. Were you involved in that decision to buy? Yeah, I went to, we went to Goodfellows and had a look at, in London in their Fitzrovia studio like shop. It's really cool. It's like a chef's dream, and you walk around and just everything. But yeah, I want to add a few little things to it. We've got some really cool little butter dishes. They're not dishes, they're sort of like almost like little sort of pillows, and they're great for sitting things on. So we'll probably get some more of those. And I do like a few, some cool things. We've got some really nice like cast iron little pans that are about that big, like almost like bit like a paella pan, but a bit deeper.
Okay.
We've done some really nice things in those, and we'll probably use those again. They're just black cast iron, and they're wicked. So yeah, we'll probably do a few bits and bobs in those. We did used to do like a mushroom dish in those, and we did a crab rice dish at the beginning, but it's not on anymore. So yeah, they're really good for that.
Because I think there is a degree of, it's quite good to have stuff that's all the same, because it forces you to be probably more creative with what you're doing, isn't it? Whereas if you have loads of different plates, then you're kind of opening yourself up to too many options almost.
Yeah, and I think it detracts from what you're actually like. Once were with these plates, and they looked like a sort of like a blue nucleus on the bottom of them, and they were really, really nice. But it just sort of like, you put one thing on there, and then when the dish changed, because of the seasons change, you'd be like, it doesn't look as good. And it's kind of like, and then you wouldn't use them. And I'm like, well, what was a waste, isn't it? So I think it's honestly better just to have, I like different sort of styles of plates, but I think they would all, for me, all have to be relatively the same color. Yeah. Like I would like some really nice, cool pasta bowls. That's one thing. Or some different bowls. Because at the moment we just have sort of a basic, sort of like just a round, very flat bowl. I'd like some that are sort of like that. But yeah, always have to be relatively the same colour, I think.
I think that makes perfect sense, actually. It's funny, I was chatting to another chef about this who literally only opened his restaurant about 3 weeks before we did this with the podcast, and he did say the best thing was literally just going down and buying all those crockery and having the choice and the freedom to go and do it. We all like gear. I mean, this is why I like photography and stuff, and I guess that's your gear, isn't it, a lot of the time?
Yeah, that and knives.
Knives, yeah. Are you a tweezers kind of guy?
I do use tweezers, but I don't use them like all the time, constantly to plate. But yeah, I do use tweezers. I prefer using spoons, to be fair, because
I've seen a lot of people using these spoons.
Yeah, and it sounds really bad. I'm probably going to get slated for it, but I like using hands. I wash my hands all the time. Yep. They're very, very clean. Yep. I hate seeing people wearing gloves all the time and plates. I know you have to they do it in big chains because
it's a bit murdery, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a bit like, we all use our hands. We all know, like it's very natural to use. But yeah, spoons, and I do use tweezers, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're using beetroot. Beetroot always has to be tweezers, because otherwise you just end up with stained hands and it's so annoying. But
anything with too much chili as well.
Yeah, no, I'm not an anti-tweezers person though, like some people are. Like,
definitely.
I hate tweezers. I'm like, no, it's just another thing. I think it is. You do get a lot of people that, I think, again, people don't use things in the right. I think a lot of chefs think that just by putting loads of micro herbs, I really don't like micro herbs anymore. Mm-hmm. I used to use them. I think in certain terms they're all right, but I find a lot of chefs just put herbs on plates just because they think it looks good. Yeah. And it's like, like lots of nasturtium leaves, and you're like, whoa. Nasturtium leaves are really peppery, so you're basically just killing your dish for some aesthetics, and it doesn't really make any sense. Yeah. But again, everything that's meant to be there that is actually useful is fine. I've got no problem with that. We're using a little bit of micro watercress on a dish right now, and we do use some nasturtium leaves, but we only use them with things that can really take it. So we wouldn't ever just put anything on for the sake of putting it on.
Do you think, because you mentioned about swipes, how because clearly that is one of those fashion trends that it's definitely on its way out, if not out.
It'll come back though, I guarantee you.
Well, I mean, everything is cyclical, isn't it? When you look at fashions and things like that.
I don't mind a swipe where it is the puree, and then you push it along all the plate, and then you sit everything on top, like we discussed at the beginning when I said that's fine, because basically as you eat it, you're going to eat the puree, or whatever is on the bottom. That's fine. Yeah. When people just sort of start going and throwing it across the plate, I don't really get it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really get that. Yeah. It's not really my kind of.
But do you think micro herbs will be the next thing that kind of people are seeing too much of?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they're trendy anymore or not. I don't know. I do quite. I'm partial to a chive. I do love. I love a sprinkle of chives. Yeah, I just love chopping them as well. So, but again, they actually add. They do add a bit of colour, and they are relatively. We'll put them on things. Like we finish our mashed potatoes. So we do a really amazing beef fat pom puree at the moment. But we finish it with crispy shallots, a little bit of olive oil, and some chives on top, just because it adds a bit of colour and it makes it a little bit more stand out. But it's. I'm not putting chives on there and going, oh, well, it looks really nice, but they don't taste it. Chives and mashed potato work together.
Yeah, and the green will help, I'm sure.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds reasonable. What other sort of trends do you see at the moment then? Things that are, things you either do here or you think, I'm going to try that. Is there anything you can think of that is...
I read this question now. I was like, I really can't think.
That's right.
Because I go out to eat. I really love going out to eat, and obviously not living in London anymore is like this. It limits me. I think trends now. I think simplicity is really the thing. Is really the key. So there's a really great pub up the road from where I live called the Bell at Langford, and me and my girlfriend went, and we just had an amazing. They did a venison bourguignon pie for two to share, and it came with a bloody great piece of bone marrow stuck in the centre, and it was just fantastic. It looked lovely. It was never going to win, it's not. But it was just fantastic, and I honestly think simplicity is key. And that's what we're trying to do here, but also add in a few little tweaks and stuff like that. So people, we're doing a dessert at the moment that's like Jaffa cake. So it's basically, we have these really cool molds that we can pop things out of. So we make a chocolate orange mousse, and then we fill it full of blood orange jelly, blood orange segments, and then we put a sesame seed sponge on the bottom. Yeah. And then we freeze them, pop them out, and then we spray them in cocoa butter because we've got like a...
God, who doesn't like a Jaffa cake?
Yeah, I know. And also, you can call it a Jaffa cake because they've never patented the Jaffa cake.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's why Tesco's call their own brand Jaffa cake. Yeah.
I know they're a tax dodge, aren't they, or something? If they've got a cake or a biscuit and you get charged VAT on biscuits or cake or something like that.
I don't know about that.
There was a whole reason why they got in trouble over Jaffa cakes.
Yeah. So when you see a Swiss roll is a biscuit.
Right.
It's not a sponge.
Okay.
It's a
class of a biscuit.
Yeah, because of the way it's made of egg whites and sugar, so therefore it's a biscuit. It's not a sponge because you don't beat the yolk, you don't beat the butter and the sugar together and then fold in your flour. Yes,
there is a VAT implication for it. I can't remember which way around it is. So biscuits or cakes, one is better than the other.
But I think that is doing simple things but really cool. Like just keeping it simple. Like at the moment we've got a pecan pie on. It's really good. It's like a pecan tart. It's great, and we make a pumpkin custard to go with it, but we gas it up in an Issy gun. Yeah. So it goes like that old school, and I wanted it to be like that old school sort of like if you've been to Amsterdam, they do hot apple pie and they do like squirty cream, and I wanted it to be like that. So I think it's just taking things and keeping them really simple, but doing little twists on them and just cooking like in summer we're going to do, or when English tomatoes come, we're going to do a beautiful piece of barbecued monkfish, and we're going to make like a butter sauce, like an Indian style butter sauce, but we're going to make it with English tomatoes. Wow. So it's basically like an English curry sauce, the same that we do with the green Thai curry on the Hispy right now. So that's what I'm trying to sort of achieve, and I think that is trends around. You see now people are going, really simple. People are also going quite old school as well. Like old school dishes are coming back, and I think but they're modernizing them, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely true. A bunch of chefs I've seen on this are in the same sort of way, looking to take influences from the past, but also doing just to make it new, make it sustainable, make it local and all that kind of stuff. They're only good qualities, aren't they?
Yeah, like I really want to do a quiche at some point. I want to do, but a really good quiche, like maybe finish it with some caviar or something like that. But because it's a great thing, and it's also a difficult thing to make, to get right. And that's the thing that I think people overshadow. And I did this when I was like young. I was like, I just wanted to like make things that were cool and put swipes on plates and stuff like that. And then you sort of fast forward like a couple of years, and then when you get older, you're like, actually, it wasn't good. And it's so much better when you just make something that's really good. Yeah. And you put every effort to make it absolutely perfect, and you season it well, but it also looks visually, nice. But it might not be like a 2 Michelin star plate of food, but it will taste great, and that's what you need.
It'll be more timeless as well, won't it? Whereas you can look at photography, you can look at fashion, things date, things like that don't date, do they? They're classics for a reason, and then if you can just elevate it.
100%, yeah. And obviously, it's never going to look like Escoffier cooked it in 1920, or but as it gets, things have changed, but. Yeah, I would have saw there's a Michel Roux documentary about Escoffier, and he does like, there's a really famous Escoffier dish called tête de veau, which is like basically it's boiled veal head.
Okay.
It probably wasn't, and then he takes it and recreates it. This documentary's probably about 10 years old, and he goes and makes it, but he picks all the meat down, and then he panes it and turns it into like a big crispy sort of like nugget. So it's still tête de veau, but it's just done in a different way.
Yeah, so reinvented it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd like to just talk about some of I got you to tell me some of your sort of chef influences, people that you either look up to or really like the style of their plate. Just because I'm always very interested to see what you as a professional see in these dishes. So I've got Gareth Ward first from
Innisea.
Okay, and I'm just interested to what you see. So if you just swipe left or right, just kind of what you see, why you like these things. Because what got me with a lot of these things is the scale, because he's got a lot of smaller things on very large plates to give it quite a lot of drama, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's amazing. I really want to go. But that's kind of like that's relatively. I mean, he's got a lot of different varied plates. I mean,
beautiful.
Insane. But it's just very simple. It's minimalistic. I mean, obviously, this is a 30-course tasting menu, so you can't go sticking 15 elements on a plate because that's it. And he does it. He keeps it really simple. He's like, it's just amazing ingredients, cooked amazingly well, lots of it over fire, usually glazed in some sort of sticky.
Oh, it's fire as well, is it?
Yeah,
right.
Majority of it is. Yeah,
okay.
I believe so. Anyway, I'm yet to go. I really do want to go. Yeah, but that's my. It's very. It's either central or it's just offset. Yeah. There's a lot of area on the plate.
Yeah, very contrasty as well.
Yeah,
because these for me, I mean, these are clearly maybe taken at different times and styles, but the visual punch of that is very different to the visual punch of that.
Yeah, that doesn't look like his. I don't think that is his dish, to be honest.
It may. Do you know what?
Maybe it's
taken off the internet. So
that might be quite an old dish.
This is the thing. Because definitely these are taken off his Instagram, so I know.
Yeah, this is definitely more sort of. This is newer, but I mean, it's just really simple and really great.
But it's also interesting to show that everybody evolves their style, don't they? You know, from what he, let's say that was his dish from a while ago.
Yeah, 100%.
How that's now completely changed, and you can just tell.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously still kept the ethos of, relatively like, that's a piece of meat with some sort of extra little piece of meat that looks like sort of, I'm guessing that looks like lamb. So I reckon that's loin, and then you've probably got a bit of belly here, and that's some puree just with a little bit of, with tiny little bit of veg. I'm not bothered for those little turnips.
But it's night and day in terms of how it's presented, because I'm sure the cooking, it will taste just as well, it will all work really well, but just visually, it's night and day, isn't it? Just a different style.
That's proper cool.
It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, those bowls are lovely. Yeah. It's very different. And you can obviously tell, like, as he's gone through it, he's just decided that he just wants to minimize it, keep minimizing it.
Yeah.
And so you just got the product, which is great, and then just cooked really simply. But compared to other 2-stars, that's why I quite like him, because he's quite out there, and he's like, I'm not going to put loads of stuff on a plate.
Yeah.
He's just very. You're going to show me Dan Barber now.
Well, do you know, Dan Barber, I'd not heard of him before. And
Dan Barber's cool.
I actually found it quite hard to get pictures because he doesn't put anything on his Instagram particularly. It's all like behind the scenes.
Did you find Blue Hill Farm?
I did, but again, there wasn't much.
No.
There wasn't much of the. Oh, no. Yes, I did. There we go.
Yeah.
These things. I'd never seen anything quite like it.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, this is
like an instrument of torture.
Yeah. It's quite weird. Yeah. I'm not sure about these half plates that keep popping up.
Yeah,
it's like when people cut desserts in half, like they'll make a totally cylindrical like mousse and then they cut it in half. And I'm like, are you doing that just because that's tasting menu? So you need to cut it in half to get more portions out of it, and not because you can't afford to give. Yeah, interesting. I'll be honest, like his ethos of just how food is. I mean, I'm not too bothered about it, but he is ingredient led through and through, because they have a farm and they grow everything, and but. That is like if you watch a chef's table, that is the first thing they give you, because they're like that's your sort of canapé, and people are like, I've never had a radish that tastes like that, because they just look after it and it's the way it's produced. And they don't use any pesticides and all that. It's very organic, so it's proper cool.
Yeah,
it is interesting. I mean, to be fair, if you said to me, would you prefer that or Gareth Ward, I'd be like Gareth Ward all day long. Simon Rogan as well. I think Simon Rogan's probably one of my favourites as well, for the way he plates. Again, because it's just really simplistic. It just looks like it fell from sky. And I think I also mentioned to you Phil Howard as well.
Yeah, I've got some Phil stuff in here. What I was going to say about Dan Barber,
Dan Barber,
was that he clearly has visually a very strong style. I would say there aren't that many chefs that you can just look at a plate and think, that's that guy. And I would say he's one. Massimo Bottura, he probably is another one that you can just tell what it is, and that's such a strong visual signature. I think if you have that level of visual power,
I have the Massimo Bottura cookbook, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's like a proper coffee table artistry book. It's stunning. Yeah.
Have you actually tried to cook anything from it?
And in fact, not cookbook. I've never tried cooking anything from that as well. To be fair, I reckon the Massimo one's probably a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Because you don't need basically a laboratory. But I just like these books again because it's really the photography in it's usually absolutely incredible. I like books as well. I love books.
Well, I think there's a degree to with photography. Just printing in general is something that people don't do enough. I know we're going off topic here, but then also when you're talking about cookbooks in particular, you know, just the feel of the cookbook, and especially when you're talking that high-end cookbook, just the quality of the paper that you're going through, and it's just luxurious, isn't it? And then you look at the imagery, and it evokes a lot of, and very powerful as well.
Slightly going off topic, but my girlfriend's got a Kindle, and she loves books, and she absolutely demolishes books, just goes through them like there's no tomorrow. And I get that's why she has it, but for me, I could never use a Kindle. I like to read a book, an actual book. It's not for me to not.
I agree, and especially if you're doing more photography, print stuff. I can't recommend that highly enough. Even if it's doing a photo book or just going down to Boots and getting some of your best prints printed off. Yeah, it makes such a difference. Put them in a frame.
No, that's what we're going to do with a few of the safari shots.
Yeah,
100%. Because then I'm like, I quite like the idea of it being on my wall and be like, yeah, I took that.
Yeah, and what you can do is you can just, once you put in a different, you know, you're taking a better picture, just take the old one out and put a new photo in. You know, and it's still doing that, but it's the art of curation as well, which is really important. You know, because we can all take thousands of photographs without thinking about it. Taking the time to go through it and then think, I'm going to go out and print that, then put it on a wall, makes a big difference.
My mum actually said to me the other day, because she was like, she got a new phone and she'd run out of storage. I was like, oh, you'll have to buy new storage. And she's like, isn't it funny that we, you know, years ago when you had when you used camera reel, you probably wouldn't take photos of everything because you had to, you know, secure that. You know, you only had like 40 shots on a reel, and then nowadays we just go click. Like I'll take photos of my food. Like I'll take 15 images of the and sometimes I go, bloody hell, have I actually taken, has it changed? Because you flick through and you're like, it moves about 0.5 millimeter and you're like, okay. But then you find yourself sitting there going, I found that with Instagram as well. Like I sometimes get more reaction on when things look less polished on Instagram. And I think that's something people should take on board, because obviously I take shots with my camera and then I go and edit them and I go, can't wait to put that on Instagram because I think it looks brilliant. But the other day I was just testing out some, so we've got tortellini dish going on maybe this week, hopefully. So we've got cod on the menu, and obviously with the cod, because I want it to look perfectly cylindrical, we get a lot of, and also it cooks unevenly if you don't take the belly off and all the trim. So we end up with loads of trim. So we're making tortellini out of all the trim, like a brandard, garlic, some ricotta, and then we're going to do it in a wild garlic and chicken stock butter. And I took a photo of it, just like 5 little tortellini in a bowl, and just put testing this for next week. And I got more reactions, people going, wow, that sounds amazing, they look great, rather than being like, when I've gone over, you know, made it like look a professional photo.
I think there's a degree of truth to that. I think people like authenticity. You know, there's a whole thing at the moment with like, you know, AI and AI photography and all that kind of stuff. And it was the same 10 years ago with things being overly photoshopped and things being too manicured. And I think people like authenticity. That's why things like AI doesn't hugely worry me. I might have this hugely wrong, but people still want to see real things.
Yeah.
They want to see them nicely, but they don't want to see them faked. And I think people are very visually aware nowadays of that's too much. Or, you know, when you see some videos and you can tell that people put too much smoothing on a face and it just looks weird, it looks robotic, it looks unreal. And I think food can do the same thing as well. If things look too perfect, I'm not saying it's faked, but also I think that degree of authenticity and reality people like.
No, 100%. I totally agree with you. But I you know, like if I follow someone on Instagram, like usually a chef, I'll follow them or like a big fan of F1. So I follow the F1 drivers that have more sort of like cool shots on their Instagram, not like the ones that the press have taken as they walked into the paddock. And I want to see, like, because we want to see behind the scenes, don't we? That's what people are interested in.
The reality of behind the scenes, not a I know I just said about AI. Curating stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, you don't want to see something that's too over curated, do you? You want to see some reality in there as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think everyone's obsessed with cooking, aren't they? Like, cooking's getting so much more involved. Like, we had a table over here, sat on our chef's table the other week, and they were like, they've emailed saying, we do a family activity every year. Is it possible if we can come and you can do a cooking school for a day, or cooking, like, teach us how to cook something for a day? And I'm like, yeah. As long as there's not like 20 of you, because the kitchen's not big enough to fit you all in. And happily we would do it.
Well, I think it is, and I think that's something food needs to do more of, is create more of an experience, more of an event, if you see what I mean. Because there is so much other stuff out there, from deliveries to cooking at home kits and all that kind of stuff. You need to give people a reason to come out, be it live music or whatever it might be, something else in addition to great food.
Yeah, definitely. And I, like open kitchens as well. I think everyone wants to see inside the kitchen. And if I go out for dinner and they've got a bar, like a counter, rather than they go, oh, we've only got the bar left. And you almost see them going, oh, we're worried. And I'm like, no, it's great. I really want to sit at the counter, because then I can sit and watch people. And, it's really interesting to see how other people work, what they're doing.
Well, there can be so much theatre in food as well.
They really can, yes.
And so much dynamism and interest. And I think that transparency of open kitchens is really good as well. People can see what's going on. People can see the skill, the time, the effort, because it can get lost if it's behind the door, can't it? And that's part of what I, as a punter, like to see.
Yeah.
It's that story. I like to see the fact the chefs are in the back, and the chef sometimes brings stuff out and tells me what it is and stuff. Those places that do that, it's really good.
Yeah, I try to do that here sometimes. A lot of the times, because we're a bit short staffed, but I'll happily run food and But I don't like to explain it too much to people. I just because I think sometimes people can be a bit like, it's too much blah 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 blah, and you just want people just want to know what it is, and and then if a lot of times I leave people to ask me questions rather than sort of pushing too much information on them. And then if they really want to know, then I'll completely bore them for about half an hour with how we've gone to that dish. Yeah. You haven't got a taxi booked.
Yeah, exactly. So can you tell me a little bit about what dishes you're going to plate for us today, and then maybe if there are any interesting plating techniques that you thought about?
At the moment, we've got the dish I'm going to do is we've got a lovely bit of aged rump of beef, and we cook it really slowly and bring it up to a nice temperature in the oven. So we render all the fat off it, loads of garlic, loads of thyme, and then we just cook it really, really slowly. And then we rest it for hours, and then we carve it just really thin slices. And then we've got on the bottom of the plate, we've got a pickled walnut ketchup, which actually sort of do in like rings. Oh, so we actually buy jarred pickled walnuts, and then we reduce them all down, and then we blend them to a really, really uber smooth puree. And then we just sit that on the bottom of the plate. So as you eat it, and then we put a few dots of puree in between the bits of beef. So as you eat the beef, you get some of the puree. And then we've got just a really nice horseradish mayonnaise made with fresh horseradish. And then we've got some candied walnuts. Walnuts that we just take and boil them up in a bit of sugar and water. And then we deep fry them, and they go really crispy. We've got some grated fresh horseradish. And we've got a little bit of watercress, like the micro watercress that I was saying, just because it's a bit more dainty and a bit more delicate. And then we finish the whole thing. We cover it in more grated horseradish, and then we finish it in freshly frozen blue cheese.
Oh, what?
Which again is my ethos.
Did you say frozen blue cheese?
Yeah. So because it's easier. Also, it's easier to grate. But the fact is, what happens is when we portion our cheese. You always end up, especially with blue cheese, even if you use a really hot knife, you always end up with bits breaking off, or as it sits in a tub for a day or so, it tends to split. And obviously, I don't want to serve that, so we just put it in the freezer, and then we just finish it over the dish with the microplane. And that's kind of how that dish came. I was like beef, blue cheese, and then I started adding in the walnut ketchup. Yeah. And the walnut ketchup really gives it like a zing, like a really nice vinegary sort of pickled taste.
That's blown my mind. Frozen blue cheese that you can micrograte.
Do it.
I might have to do that.
If you have any cheese, to be honest, grates really well. Like you've got a bit of cheddar and stuff like that at the end. Don't chuck it in the bin, or it's going a bit sort of towards the end of its life. Just put it in a little tub, put it in the freezer. It's great, especially over salad. You make a salad at home. You know, like a watercress salad or something like that.
I'm having that. Tip for me. Nice.
Tip of the day.
Yeah, brilliant, Ben. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Really fun. Thank you very much for taking the time. Right, so Ben, we're doing the beef dish first, yeah?
Yeah, we are. So first we start the plate with a little bit of walnut ketchup. So again, like I told you, it's just, I was nearly about to move that plate. It's just pickled walnuts that we actually buy jarred because they're really, really good. And then all we do is just reduce them down so the liquor gets really concentrated, and then we just blend it up with. Okay. And I use a thing, probably quite interesting for playing, I use a thing in all my purees called xanthan gum. Yep. Which holds, it hates water, so it keeps everything together. And it gives you a really lovely, smooth consistency, which makes the plate look really. Okay. So we start by.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm not bothered. I'm not too, fancy plating, but this is just a sort of way of getting all that puree, all that ketchup onto the bottom, and then We start the next bit with, I've got some lovely, this is aged, at the moment we're using sirloin on the menu, but today I'm using this, I'm going to change it because this is a lovely piece of aged rump that I talked about. And we just basically cook it till it's
that's proper pink, isn't it?
beautifully pink.
Look at that.
And I'm just folding these over just for a little bit of height and a little bit of texture.
Yep. Is this a dish that has evolved in its look since you've had it on, or is this kind of...
No, it's actually relatively stayed pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Give or take. The only difference is we just changed the beef. So I'm just sort of folding this in. A little bit.
Do you ever get anybody asking if you can do it well done?
Yeah.
Do you ask them to leave?
To be honest, I don't actually get anybody asking for well done meat here, which is a really lovely thing because, and it just, a lot of the time, I think people eat meat well done because they're afraid that it's going to come and it's not a bit, and a lot of the times they'll go to places that aren't cooking meat properly. So obviously resting is such an important thing for me, 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm also using a little bit of the fat as well because the fat's really good.
Yep. Yeah, it's got some nice height, doesn't it?
Yeah, lovely. It's just, and then obviously what we do is we just season it a little bit with some sea salt. Always Malden, never anything else.
Yep.
Want some sponsorship now from Malden. And then obviously we've got the walnut ketchup on the bottom, but I don't think when you eat this dish, and obviously I eat all my dishes, it's not enough to complement the beef. So what I do is I start to dot in a little bit of the ketchup just to make it, just so it's a little bit of a surprise as well as you eat it.
Yep. Is it quite sweet?
No, it's actually more salty. It's got a similar taste to Liam Perrin's Worcester sauce. Yeah, which I love.
Yeah, I love Worcester sauce.
I got slated the other day for having Worcester sauce on a bacon sandwich. Everyone was like, "That's weird. I've never ever seen that before in my life."
Well, I'm gonna have to say I've never heard of that either.
What? Maybe it's a Yorkshire thing.
I thought it was normally between brown sauce and ketchup.
Oh no, ketchup's awful. Can't have ketchup. So these are the candied walnuts. So they're really light because obviously we cook all the density out of them.
Yep.
And then we just crisp them up, and they're just to add a little bit of texture, and a little bit of contrast. And they're quite earthy as well. And this dish is, should be nice and earthy. Okay.
Yep.
And as you see, I've just put a little bit of this is amazing olive oil that I told you about earlier from Spain. It's really peppery.
Okay.
It's really strong.
And is this a starter? Is this a?
So this is sort of like it's a sort of like one of our small plates. So I would advise someone to share this between two at start of the meal. And then here we've got just a little bit of the, just a really nice mayonnaise, but with fresh horseradish, not that awful jarred stuff that people buy. Because you don't really taste a horseradish.
No, you don't.
So we're just adding in little dots, just so as you eat the dish, the whole thing comes together. And then we take our microplane, and we've got a little bit of fresh horseradish. Again. Okay, and then that's pretty much it coming together. And then what we've got is a little bit of, I'll just dress a little bit of fresh watercress, nice and vibrant. And I actually was spreading it over the top of the dish at one point. That's the only thing we changed. But then I think all we do is you just sort of sit it on the end.
Okay. So you would have covered everything.
Yeah, but I was like, the beef's too nice to cover and it doesn't look very good.
It's always a shame to have stuff hidden, isn't it, you know?
And then we've got this is Beanley Blue, and we've just got a bit of frozen blue cheese, and all we do is just finish.
See, that's just rocking my world.
Yeah. And obviously you can't tell, and I know this is about visuals, but this dish I make sure that it has to be at room temperature. So we'll make it. When we get one on order, obviously the beef stays in the fridge.
Yep.
But before we send it, we'll always make sure that it's relatively at room temperature before we serve it to a customer. Because I'm a big fan of also, visuals are very important, but the warmth of things as well. Like there's nothing worse than cold fruit, cold vegetables. Yeah. Particularly because things don't taste very nice when they're at 3 degrees. They taste better when they're at room temperature and ambient temperature.
It's all part of the experience, isn't it? Thinking
100%.
these things through is just part of, I guess, the job of what you guys do.
Yeah, and I've done a few food demonstrations at Foodies Festival, like Oxford, did one for London, and I was telling people about the main thing that I think people get wrong at home, like cooking steak, cooking fish, is they don't let it come to room temperature.
Yes.